Live. I felt my pulse, and my pulse is working, so I'm live. All right, hey, I am 5 minutes early, and I'm doing that for a reason, to give people a chance to come in. This is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. I'm in the nerve center of Baker's Green Acres. I'm at the kitchen table, and I'd like to welcome you to the Anyone Can Farm Homesteaders Guild's question and answer session for Wednesday, March 12th, I think, 2019. I think that's going to be a little loud for sure. Okay, and life goes on here at Baker's Green Acres. I'm going to have to live without Jill helping me for about the first 15 minutes because she's on another call. And let's see. I'm gonna wait. Two Quacks is here. I'm gonna wait to take any questions probably until she gets here. So about the first 15 minutes, if we could just hold. The other night I did an impromptu live YouTube video, and it went pretty well. It was a Monday night, and I made a bunch of announcements, and I think that that's something that I should do because people need to know what's going on, and you'd always go to a guy's website to check it out. But our website is bakersgreenacres.com. It's a pretty nice website. My wife has made it. It's been tweaked over the years, but it's pretty nice. I'd encourage you to go there and look around. There's quite a few products that we have for sale there. We have set a date for the Anyone Can Farm Hog Harvest, and it's going to be November 1st this year, 2019. And I'll just briefly explain what that is. This is going to be, I think I was remiss when I said it was going to be our 10th year. This is going to be our 9th year. Our first year doing that was 2010. All right, so this will be our 9th year. It seems like we've done a lot more, but we do a lot of classes in between. But the big one is the one here at the farm. It is a 3-day, so November 1st this year is on a Friday. So the class starts right after noon. We encourage people to get here. This is an in-residence class, so you got to come. But for hog butchering, I think you're going to want to be here. And this is the hands-on. You get to look real close. You get to smell. You get to touch, and hear, and you're right there. And it's the real deal. All right. So you got to be here. It's a 3-day. Starts Friday. We encourage people to be here about noon. We do a little coffee drinking, meeting and greeting. Where are you from? Why are you doing this? That type of thing. And then by 2 o'clock at the latest, we've killed our first pig. We like to kill 1 pig per 6 people that are in the class. So each person has a half a pig to break down. And first day we kill, scald, scrape, and just get the pig split in half and laid out on tables to cool overnight. So in November, you know, it's fairly cool. The next day we start at 9 o'clock. We break down the carcasses into what they call the primals. And usually I have a demonstration half, and I make the cut. Everybody gathers around, watches that cut, and then you go back to your table, and then you make that cut. And some of the cuts are more complex than others. I would say we have a way that we do it. Other people do it other ways, but you know, we teach it the way we do it, and then we'll take the primals and we'll break them down. Not completely, because we could spend a lot of time doing that, but we break it down. Oh yeah, please hit the thumbs up. Please hit the thumbs up, like, and share, right? That changes the algorithms. And then comment, that really helps. So then the second day we break that carcass down. We go through the organs, what you can do with them. Jill does a couple of cooking demonstrations throughout the class, and we're there to actually eat what she's cooking. We get into rendering. We get into how to utilize the other cuts of fat, how to use the skin. It's pretty inclusive. Then the third day, second day is a long day. That's the day that people are dragging the next day. The next day, we are grinding, we are packaging, we're talking about marketing, we are salting, we're talking about curing, we're talking about sausaging, and we're talking about hanging meats and everything that goes with it. And then we actually do it. And then at the end of the class, we have a special rate on the pigs that we've just broken down. And these are top of the line Mangalitzas, special rate, depending on how cooperative the class is, how much I like the class. And we give the rate after people do their critique. And if they give us a favorable critique, we give them a good price on the pork. And then, that's the third day. And it's a good class. I'd say it's a great class. It's one of the best around. So people are already getting in line to register for it, so go ahead and check out that service at bakersgreenacres.com. This summer we're going to do a pastured poultry class. That's a one-day class, and we've had a lot of interest in that, and these are startup farmers. Pastured poultry is a really good place to start for you. So this is a pretty inclusive class too, but unfortunately we have to do it in June because we have to have chickens ready to go. Class goes something like this. We start by showing you our brooder, talking about it, getting it clear, completely clear in your mind how the brooding process works. Then we move to the field where we have chicken tractors. We move a couple of them, we talk about it, answer the questions that people have, talk about feeding, water systems. I have a really unique water system that really anybody can hook up, but it saves a ton of time. And then we come back to the shop, the maintenance shop, and we put together a chicken tractor. Now, it's not a complete build because I'm going to have most of it done. And this is my Generation 3 chicken tractor, so this is going to, CNN will probably be here, or Fox News, one of the two, I'm sure, because this is going to be famous. And then we move from there right to the butcher shop, and that's where we start actually processing some chickens. So everybody gets a chance to participate in that to whatever degree they want. And I'll just put it this way, if you feel pressure, my wife has been living here for as long as I've been living here. She has never killed anything, right? So if you're not comfortable with that, you just say, I'll pass on that part of it. But the processing part of it, the plucking and all that stuff, we do it both ways. We do it just the old-fashioned way. If you're just a homesteader and you're going to do 50 a year, I don't recommend getting a chicken plucker. But if you want to do more than that, let's say you want to do 50 a week, I think a chicken plucker would really help you out. You definitely pay for the investment. So you get to see one operate, and we can talk about how it would fit in to your operation. And during this class, this is like you have me for the whole day. So any questions that you have, I can answer them. We do eat during the class. This year we're going to ask everybody to bring a dish to pass, and then we're going to have barbecued chicken. So everybody will get to eat some pastured poultry too. That's a neat class. And I don't have an exact date on that, but I think it's going to be late in June. When we get into July, nobody wants to go any place in July. And then we're going to do, in the spring, early in the spring, we're going to do a fencing class. So the things that I believe that you need to know is how to build a corner post and how to build H-posts, and then how to install woven wire fence. If you can do woven wire, you can do barbed, or you can do high tensile. But you need to know how to make those end pieces. All right, and so this is a full day class. Everybody gets to be involved. When it's done, you know, you can be clicking away with your phone the whole time, taking pictures, so you can memorize how to do this when you get home. But it's very important as a homestead or small farmer for you to know how to make fences, and fences that are going to contain your animals. And during that class we talk about electric fencing too. We install some. I mean, it's not way difficult to do. It just, if you can see how to do it, it helps you out a lot in what you're going to do. I don't have a date on that one, I'm sorry, but I will. We're arranging some things around. On our website, I want to explain this because I'm getting a lot of questions about it. We do consulting, all right? Consulting is where you call me or you say I want to pay for an hour of consulting. It's $100. We have a veterans discount, so it's $99 for veterans. Government employees, actually, non-veterans, it's $105. All right, so you can call and let us know that you want to get an hour block, and I'll tell you what I think you need to prepare, and then we can either do a Zoom call, and that's where we're face-to-face on the screen, or we can just do a phone call. Now, I don't get to look at your property, I don't get to walk on your property, I don't get to feel it, I don't get to smell it, I don't get to feel the vibrations coming into my, so it is what it is. An hour of my time, you know, that's what it is. And there's a lot of things that we can cover. I'm telling you, paying for consulting is a good idea when you're new at something. It really is. It puts you steps ahead. You can get bits and pieces, but there's nothing like having somebody that you're saying, please tell me what to do, or please help me, consult with me on what to do, and that person can do that. So it's well worth it. The other consulting is on site, and that's where me and Jill get on a car or an airplane and we go to you, and then we spend 2 days there. First part of it, we just walk around, we get the feel of it, and we say, okay, what do you want to do here? What do you think you want to do? And we're going to give you the no joke, you know. If you say we want to do rainbow ponies, we're going to tell you that's not a good idea, you know, because you're hiring us, you want to know what we think, and we're going to tell you what we think. When it's all over, hopefully we do this on a 2-day piece. On the second day, we will sit at your kitchen table, and we will drink coffee, and we will talk about what we would do if we were there. And then you'll say, well, this is what I want to do, and I'll say, okay, well, if you're going to do that, then we need to move these pieces here. More than likely, you have a lot of pieces on your property, and it just needs to be moved around and see how they fit together and see how they complement each other. And we've been doing this long enough. As many of you probably know, I received my expert certification last Monday. And that's why I'm wearing the official Baker's Green Acres colors today. It's because I just feel as though I want to represent the farm more officially. But that's a consulting service too. You can say well, it costs too much, but I really don't know how you can do that otherwise having someone come. You can struggle along for many years and have lots of failures, and some people, unfortunately, they quit, you know, because they have failures. But that's why a training program is in place. For those of you that know me or that don't know me, my background is aviation, and then I was in military aviation for 20 years. And we're always training, always talking about, you know, what could happen and how to prevent what could happen from happening. And farming, I mean, you're dealing with some pretty volatile stuff. Animals, if you're going to do hogs, they can get out and they can do a lot of damage. They go feral in the state of Michigan. Or beef cattle, I mean, they can get out and they can get hit by a car. So there's a lot of things that it's good to have somebody look at and say, well, let's look at that. I mean, you can do what you want, but it's nice to be given those things so you can start to think about those. So that's that. And also the Homesteaders Guild. The Homesteaders Guild is a 12-week class. They are seasonal. There are 4 of them. We are in the winter one right now, and we are on week 9. All right. So we're winding up the winter one. The fall one is already in the can, which means we already accomplished that, and it's ready to go. It's being packaged up as we speak, and you are going to be able to purchase that. You don't get the secret sauce with it. The secret sauce is on Tuesday night. We do a Zoom call, so all the members of the class come together, and we get to discuss the topic of that week. Now, those topics are the topics that I pick, and I am hopefully instilling a sense of urgency in you. If you think that you're going to be on this earth for a long, long time, you're wrong. You're not going to be here that long, so you need to get this stuff done if you want to see it. So you got to get after it, and you can do a lot of things that you think are important, and that's good. But in the Homesteaders Guild, you are, what it is a guide service. I'm guiding you, and it's my agenda. It's what I think you need to know, and you can do it or not. It's up to you. I mean, I don't come and check on you, but it's me giving you what I think you need if you're going to be a successful homesteader or small farmer. My background is I started out homesteading. I mean, we had a little place. I was still active duty, and we had some chickens, and then we got some pigs, and then I got a few beef cattle, and then I needed to learn how to butcher the chickens. I learned how to butcher pigs, and all these things took time, and some of them were a result of I had a pig get away and I couldn't get it back in, so I wound up having to shoot it. Okay, now what do I do? I have to learn how to butcher it. So I kind of learned like you would learn butchering a deer or whatever. So that's that. We're getting ready to start the spring class. If you'd like to get in on that, that is also available at bakersgreenacres.com. All right. And anything else, please like, share, and subscribe. I know that's a long commercial, but I'm kind of burning some daylight here until Jill comes and can read for me. Okay, so I'm going to start with a leftover question, and this is from Joe Brown. He's a friend of mine. He's in Maine. And if you'd like to ask a question, please ask questions in caps, in all capital letters, so we know that it's a question. And then maybe I can see it. You know, that's the problem with this. It only appears on my screen for very briefly, and then it goes away. So when I see all caps come up and I'm done with a question, I might be able to get it. When Jill comes, she writes them down, and then she passes them to me. And you may have questions for her. She's an occupational therapist by trade, but she's been in this farming business with me now for this farm 15 years and about 7 years before that at our last farm. So she's had a lot of experience. She's had 7 children and excellent mother, and she is actually working on her Ayurvedic holistic medicine certification, or whatever they are going to call that, but very, very useful. And okay, so Joe Brown had a question. I'm going to have to put on the specs here. But being an expert, probably should be wearing these anyway. Okay. Serve daily for thoughts on small amounts of seaweed daily for pigs versus kelp meal. I have a little experience with that. I was out to Maine a couple of years ago, and I was hauling a heavy trailer back, and I had nothing in it, so I put about a ton of seaweed in it, and I thought maybe the pigs will eat it. And I brought it back and I fed it to them. They ate it. Sure enough, they ate it. And I've had exposure to people that use seaweed quite a bit since then in soil preparation, seaweed has a lot of mineral in it. And you might think, well, it's got salt in it, that's bad for the soil. Not necessarily. I mean, these minerals do get used up. So long as you don't put too much salt in your soil, I think you're going to be all right. With soil, we're always recommending that you get a soil sample, and we use an outfit called Logan Labs. Okay. Now Joe's asking me what I think seaweed versus kelp meal. Kelp, I believe, in my understanding of kelp is that it is seaweed and that it's dried and ground. Okay? So there we go. That was my first question. Now I guess I'm going to have to really buckle down and wait for another question and read it, because I don't have my assistant with me yet. And I see that we're 21 minutes into the program. She said I'd have to go for the first 15 minutes. Here she comes. Here she comes. All right. Coffee in hand. All right, we're ready. We're ready.
You need a question?
Yeah, I need a question.
This is Paul from Kansas.
Yes, Paul from Kansas.
Yesterday, I heard you talk about how dangerous a bull can be. We are looking to get miniature Hereford cattle, and we plan on having a bull. Do bulls really give you that much trouble?
Well, I wasn't kidding yesterday. He's not asking me what I think about miniature Herefords.
No.
You're saying you're going to get miniature Herefords.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to get miniature Herefords, my recommendation would be, unless you're going to get 15 of them, your probably better bet would be to utilize a artificial insemination service. They're all over the place. I mean, unless you're in Kansas, you can't be too far away from anybody. But a bull, Paul, you got to remember, an intact bull is what they use for bull riding, for bull fighting, for running the bulls. So just watch that and think, on your homestead, do you want to have a tiger, that's in a cage, that if it gets out, it can do a tremendous amount of damage? And they don't necessarily like to go back in. Once they get out and go into your garden and start eating zucchinis, you can't just tell them, hey, get back in your pen there. They're hard to manage. Your miniature Herefords, which I don't know why you'd want to get miniature Herefords, but if you want to get miniature Herefords, you can. They're going to be pretty fairly docile animals. Like, you can graze them behind a single strand of poly wire, that's electrified. Your bull, not so much. Not so much. If he wants to, he'll take a run at that poly wire and break right through. And once he starts getting out and they start following him out, then you've got a bad situation too. Now, unless you're going to keep him in a small stall, but that I don't recommend either. They just get really antsy. You've got to have them in their own paddock, and the way those paddocks are built is with electrified barbed wire. That's the way you do it, and it's got to be high, because they're jumpers. If they want to get out after their girls, they're going to figure out a way to do it. So yeah, I mean it. I mean, I was watching a situation where a guy was wanting to get animals on his farmstead, and the first thing he got was a bull, and I'm watching this horrified, because I looked at the bull in the trailer, and that thing was nothing I would want to fool with. I don't fool with them at all. I got pinned against the wall by about a 600-pound heifer one time, and I found out that it's nothing that there's nothing you can do. They throw you around like a rag doll. So yeah, I mean it. I wouldn't do it, but if you want to do it, it surely will be a learning process. The only time, like I said in that video, I wanted to make a few videos about safety because we run around on the homestead and we show all the good times and everything, but we don't talk about safety. And I realized I was remiss in doing that because, you know, we're dealing with big animals, we're dealing with boars, uh, you know, hog boars, the males, the uncastrated males that have tusks on them, and those tusks are designed to do damage to their adversaries, and sometimes the pigs think that you're their adversary. If they see you as, you know, a danger to their sex life, they will take you on, the male. If you're a female and you go in there and they smell you and they think that you're ready to stand for them, they'll kind of throw you around a little bit, see if they can get you turned on. And actually, Jill did get cut one time by our boar friendly that I still have. She got cut by him probably 2 or 3 years ago when he was a young buck. But yeah, that's what I think. All right, is there another question?
Alright, can or should pigs really not eat raw potatoes? Is there anything they shouldn't eat?
Yeah, I heard that pigs shouldn't eat raw potatoes. Only thing is I'd been feeding them raw potatoes for about 2 years. So all the things that they said about feeding pigs raw potatoes, I don't think it's true. Because then I started cooking my potatoes for a short period of time, just because I had a big pot and it seemed like the thing to do. And they ate them cooked too. So I forget what it was about feeding raw potatoes that was supposed to be detrimental. But no, it's baloney. Matter of fact, raw potatoes in the wintertime preserve very nicely. When you pick them up, they're like rocks, but pigs don't have a problem with them. They'll gnaw at them and break them and swallow them, and they do. And then I heard, well, they can choke on them. No, we never had a pig choke on them. Of course, I raise Mangalitsa pigs. Mangalitsa is the premier pig in the United States, and they're kind of super pigs. So maybe the regular pigs, the bottom of the barrel type farm pigs, they don't do so well, or something like that. No, I'm being funny here. Pigs do fine on raw pigs, on raw potatoes. The other thing that I heard was from our vet lady one time, and she said, if you feed peach or cherry pits to the pigs, they could get cyanide poisoning. Right. So, but I never tried that, so I don't know about that. But I kind of wonder about that. There's a lot of folklore out there about raising pigs, and I will tell you what I know from experience. And if I don't have experience with it, I'll say, well, this is what they say, but I don't. Sorry about that. That was a phone call that came in.
Follow-up question on that too. What's the best way to feed hogs tree nuts? Should they be broken or cracked first?
Tree nuts. Is that a certain nut that I don't know about? Tree
Any
nuts.
nuts on trees.
Nuts on trees, okay. No. Pigs seem to be outfitted very nicely for nuts. They can crack them and eat them. One of the things that we do, you can follow us on YouTube. We go in the fall, and here I am in northern Michigan, so we have a lot of oak trees, and we follow the trees, you know, heavy-duty dropping of acorns, and it seems as though acorns are designed for pigs, and pigs are designed for acorns. Now, pigs are not acorns. Now, pigs are not native to North America. I don't know why it was designed that way, but they weren't here. they were brought here, right? But Holstein cows weren't either, so there you go. But what they did, even here in Michigan, what they did not too long ago when they had logging camps is they would bring pigs to the logging camp, and the person who was taking care of the cooking for the crew would just turn these pigs out into the forest. And the pigs will go out and they'll, what they call mast, M-A-S-T, it's called masting. It's a technique. And you train the pigs to come back every day. So the chef would come out and he would dump, you know, the garbage, and the pigs would go after that. But then during the day when they were out milling around, they'd go out and they'd eat acorns. What that does, if you ever eat an acorn, it's really bitter. That is from tannic acid that's in the acorn. And that tannic acid is actually a component that will resist rancidity. It will get into the pig's meat, it'll get into the pig's fat, and it actually makes the meat very stable. And you know, when we start talking about charcuterie and hanging meats and stuff like that, we're always talking about acorns, because if you feed that pig right before it's slaughtered, you put a lot of tannic acid, tannins, in the fat, and then basically you can take that rear shank off of the pig, put a little salt on it, and hang it, and just kind of make sure that the temperature is right, which it is, you know, in November. I mean, it's going to get colder, but it's going to warm up again, and that is a process that actually cures that meat, and that's where you get the really nice aged prosciutto and culatello and things like that. That's why, you know, masting is so important, and it almost seems like intelligent design. You know, the creator wanted us to have prosciutto, so that's why I'm thinking God is actually Italian, but that's just a theory on my part. Next question, please.
Is the pacer turnip and groundhog radish the same forage you use for manga forage feed? This is Sean.
Is the paper turnip?
Pacer turnip.
Sean, I've never used pacer turnips. I've used purple top turnips. Maybe it's the same. Don't know. I've used forage radishes, and we've also in the garden we've planted daikon radishes. A daikon radish looks about this big. They're about almost 2 feet long, about that big around, white, really nice, tender, sweet meat inside. If I had that and an apple sitting on the table, I would take the daikon radish every time. We've grown them out in our grow area, and they're the same as the fodder radishes are the same as the daikon radishes, in my opinion. I think they just call them different. So when you buy daikon radishes, they're way more expensive than fodder radishes. And they work great. They break up the ground really nice. The pigs have to go all the way down deep to get the tip of it. And the tops are, they look like tobacco leaves, and they're as big. And once your field gets some serious fertility going, you'll have some serious radishes going. What was the other part of that question? I'm not sure I answered
those
it.
were the same, yeah, you did. The same forage you used for your manga forage.
Yeah, I use that. I really like both of them. The purple top, we use them later in the season. You can use them early in the season too. It's just that later in the season, what you get is a turnip that's completely below the ground, or 98% below the ground. So if you let the ground freeze, the pigs will go in, they'll eat the tops off, and then they've got a frozen turnip underground, and then they have work to do. They have something to do to keep them busy. And this is great for feeder pigs because, I mean, this is a little like advanced when you are serious about charcuterie. One of the cuts on our pigs that we just go crazy for is the copa or the Coca-Cola, it's called, and it is the neck muscle. It's right behind the head, and it's a muscle about this big. And the more the pig is using his piggedness, using his snout to dig, the more massive and the more blood flow there will be into that muscle, and the more intermuscular fat will be in that muscle, and you'll get a magnificent copa that'll be this big. And then when that is cured and sliced thin, that's it. That's it right there. But see, we're gonna design our forage to train our animal to do what is gonna do to produce the muscle groups that we want, and that's a cut that we particularly like. Also, their rear hands are going to get big too, because they figure every muscle on the pig's body is connected to that disc on its nose. So if you put rings in their nose and they're not able to dig, then you're going to get limited growth, and you really want them to dig. I mean, don't put them on your hay field and think that they're just going to eat the hay and not dig. They're designed to dig. They're designed to disturb the field. So just set aside fields just for pigs, and once they get them all dug up, then you can move them on another field. You can plant them, and you can do this several times this summer. It's really neat, because if you get a daikon radish that's way too big and it's got a split down the side, you could never do anything with that at a farmer's market, but your pigs won't mind. Or if you get turnips that have a worm in it, they don't care. They don't care. They even like them better. So foraging is one of my favorite things to do. It's just so cool to do. I mean, consider growing a field, and I was just going through our seeds, and I found a shopping bag full of pumpkin seeds. And these were out of big pumpkins that somebody gave us the year before last, that we saved. So now I've got a 6-acre field that's got a little pond in the middle of it, and I have no animals on there. So I'm going to go through there, I'm going to rototill it up, I'm going to plant it. I've got a rototiller for my tractor. I'm going to plant it around the outsides, and maybe strip planting with pumpkins. Let them go all summer, right? Just leave them alone. And then there's a field full of these massive pumpkins. Not only is that great feed for the pigs, it's really fun to go out there and break them, you know, smash them. It's fun to see how big they get too, because if you have pumpkin plants that are in slightly swampy area, it can't be too wet, but slightly swampy, and if it's swampy, generally it hasn't been tilled, because you don't put equipment on it. It can be very rich, and you can get some really big pumpkins. Okay. Oh, my microphone. I hope there hasn't been a problem. Okay.
Right.
Next question.
Yep. This is Greens from Bulgaria.
All right.
What do you think about sprouting fodder?
You know, I haven't done it, but I've seen systems that people have built, and I think it is really a neat thing to do. I have a lot of thoughts on that. That's definitely on my bucket list. We found out that, and we found this out several weeks ago at a workshop that we went to. What's the name of that acid again that's on?
Phytic.
Phytic, okay? On grains, let's say a barley grain, there's an acid on the outside that's called phytic acid. And they never really used to know what it was there for, but it didn't agree with the digestive system of, say, pigs. So when you would grind grain up, the phytic acid be in there, and it would resist breaking down in the digestive tract of a pig or a chicken or cows, for that matter. And they find out that that phytic acid is there to resist breaking down, so that when an animal, you know, in the natural world is going along and they're eating grass and stuff, then they find a seed head, and they eat that grain off of there. Well, some of it's going to get chewed up as they're chewing it, but some of the grains will make it down the throat, and then they'll be deposited out the back end, and in that little flop of manure, you're going to have new growth come out. It's done that way by design, or it's just a coincidence. I would think it's design though. It's too pat. So how do you deal with that phytic acid? I mean, when you're feeding it to your animals, you want the biggest bang out of that grain that you can get. So that phytic acid, you want to defeat that. So what you do is you can just soak those grains, and the phytic acid will leach out of it, and then drain the water off, and you've got rid of all of it, or a good majority of it. Then those grains can be fed like that, just all swelled up, soaked, or you can spread them out on trays and sprout them, and that's what we're talking about here in a fodder system. And usually they have trays that are long trays, and you spread your grains out on it, and you can have a hand watering system, or you can have an automated watering system, and you're making these fodder, they call them fodder biscuits. So you can imagine if this thing's on a slight incline, the water will go all the way down through the seeds, it'll get them all moist, and then they'll sprout. And then when you're ready to harvest them, I'm not sure what the time is on it, I think it's like a week though, you pull that big fodder biscuit down to the end, slide it, and then you cut it off in sections into a wheelbarrow or something, take it out, you can throw it to your pigs, you can throw it to your chickens. And in the wintertime, it makes them really happy because, they're not just getting dried, hay or dried grain. And I think it's an outstanding idea because I think, it's a force multiplier. You have so much nutrition in a grain, but then when you sprout it, you've got a completely different dynamic going on there. And I know it's a lot better for feed. I don't know exactly why, but I'm sure it is. I would rather eat the sprouts.
Yeah.
Next question. And we could use a log on the fire too.
I would add that I've been soaking the calves' grain, and I've found that they don't need as much. Once the grains are, swollen up, and they've had that phytic acid soaked off, the calves are satisfied with less. So it helps make better use of your grain resources.
Okay.
So a little more input on that.
Yeah, and in the wintertime too, if you're watering your animals outside, and you're giving them, moist grain, that's going to take care of a lot of that. When it's really cold out, or wicked cold, like we say in Maine, they may have water that has no ice on it in the morning and then in the afternoon. So if they can get grain that's already wet, then they don't need as much water.
Yep,
so
helps with
it can
hydration.
really help you for hydration too.
Paul wanted to know, is fodder wheat? And just a quick follow-up on there.
No, fodder doesn't necessarily have to be wheat. You can even...
I use oats.
You can do oats, any of the grains. Some people even do corn, right?
But
and,
yes, it is the seed, right?
What's that?
It's the grain that you use.
Yeah, it's just the grain. It's just the grain. And then look it up. There's some great videos out there on how it's done. I've never actually done the fodder system. I've spread grain out on concrete and, got it wet and let it sprouted, and then picked up those biscuits and fed them just for fun. Jill's doing a little in the house right now just for fun. But I think it's a great system. I sat in on a conference one time. It was in California, and a lady was doing it in there was a pumpkin question that just came up. Lady was doing it in a shipping container. So I think when you start them, you're in complete darkness, and then you give them light as you go along. Okay, but I'm not the expert on that. I will be.
Paul wanted to know, what are your thoughts on vaccines for animals?
All right, vaccines are a scam. They're an absolute scam. if you have an animal that gets sick with something, you're always going to have somebody there that's going to say, oh, you need to start a vaccine program so you can keep giving shots to your animals over and over and over and over and over. You don't want to do that because you're actually bringing whatever it is on your farm. If you have an animal that gets sick, let it die. And then the next ones will build up the resistance to whatever it is. If you're having herd health problems, you got to find what's the source of that. And I talk about this a lot because we've raised pigs for a lot of years now. Hog chow is your enemy. It's got in it what they call raw protein, and a lot of that is coming out of the big slaughter plants where anything that they can't put in a Spam can, they dry it out and they pulverize it, and that's what's called raw protein. And if you feed that, that's what makes that horrid smell around swine. If you came to my farm, I mean, I only have 20 of them here now, but at some points we've had 300 of them here. There's never that smell because we quit with the hog chow a long time ago. We figured out what was going on and quit it. All right, that's your source of worms. It's bad news. If you feed stuff like pumpkins, you feed small grains, hay. I have a junk bread contract we feed. Mow the lawn. We have a lot of lawn here. Mow the lawn. Feed the clippings. Butcher a lot of chickens here, so we feed the feet if nobody wants them. Heads, guts, buttholes. It's legit. I mean, it's chicken, and it's fresh, and it's gone in no time at all. But stay away from hog chow and vaccination programs. They're not good. I know you're going to find somebody who has, but I'm an expert, so you should tell them. But I listened to an expert, and he said no. They may say, well, I'm a PhD, and I say yes. I would say, who do you represent, and then ask me who I represent. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm telling you, you don't need it. I'm trying to save you money.
Maintaining good health through proper husbandry.
Yeah, and nutrition.
And nutrition will save you more than using a vaccine.
Vaccines.
In most cases.
Yeah.
Yep. Do you have a recommendation for supplemental grains for pigs?
Well, if you're going to do mangalitsa and you're looking to do charcuterie, we've found that the best grain out there is barley. It's the most bang for the buck, and we kind of like it because there's a lot of barley out there that is not sprayed with Roundup. Wheat, that's not always true. Roundup is a herbicide, and you might think, well, how is a herbicide going to hurt a human being or an animal? Well, I guess you could ask the veterans from the Vietnam War about that and what they thought about Agent Orange and how it hurt them. But here's the problem with it. Herbicide is going to kill plant life, and you have a lot of plant life in your gut, and it's from here to the other end. And the reason they genetically modify things is so that they can spray herbicide directly on them, and it won't affect them, but it'll kill everything else. So when you look out over a beautiful field of, say, wheat or something, it looks beautiful, and there's no other weeds out there, in reality, that's not a beautiful field. That's a field that's been managed with chemical. I don't like it, and I think it's getting a lot of bad press, and it was getting a lot of bad press in my mind before it was on Facebook, because it doesn't make sense to me that you can spray those chemicals that are pretty toxic directly on grain and then bring it in, dry it, grind it, make bread, and feed it to your kids. Doesn't make sense. But we've relied on certain departments to tell us, what's right and what's wrong. Well, here to tell you they're not really concerned with the health of humanity. They're concerned with the bottom line of the companies that's making this stuff. That's who they're looking out for. And if you want to debate it, you can, but that's my opinion on it. And I'm right.
Just ask him.
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation for supplemental grains for pigs?
I just answered that one.
Oh, sorry. I was chatting and lost track of where I was then.
She's playing with me. She's gaslighting me. I'm too sharp.
This is from your Bulgarian friend again. Given that raw potatoes are okay, why not use potatoes as a forage crop?
Yeah, they would. They'd make a great forage crop. I guess, yeah, they certainly would. For me, though, planting potatoes is a little bit more tedious than spreading seed. You know, with planting potatoes, you got to have seed, right? So seed in the potato world is a potato that's all sliced up, and you plant the eye. You don't exactly plant potato seeds that I know of. Maybe they do in Bulgaria. I don't know. So it would be a little bit more labor intensive, and to be honest with you, I don't know if the pigs will eat the potato tops. We don't know that, do we? We don't know, because
Nope,
I've never fed
we've
the
never
tops
tried
to
'em.
them. So I can't really tell you on that. But if you have, let's say you have potato planting equipment, and you're a potato grower, I would say you couldn't go wrong by fencing your fields in, harvesting your potatoes, all the ones that you cut or that are split or too big or too small, take them back out in the field and dump them. You're going to kill two birds with one stone. You're going to create pork, and your pigs will manure all that stuff back to the ground, and it will keep you from needing to use petrochemical fertilizer on that field. So when you use livestock and growing practices together, you can get a lot more out of your fields than just one or the other. And when we start talking about foraging and pigs, one of the problems people have is that, well, how do you keep the pigs from digging holes? You don't. You encourage them to dig holes, right? That's what you want. That's what they're there for, is to dig. And then when they're done digging, all I have to do is seed it and pull a harrow over it real quick to cover it up. They do the work for me. They do the harvest, and then they do all the field cultivation for me, and they're doing all the fertilizing for me, because their manure and their urine is good stuff. Okay. Another question?
Oh, this is a quick one I'm going to skip here. Has African swine flu been spread to the U.S.? Has that shown up here?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. My opinion, they create these problems, and then they want you to buy the vaccines. The last time we had a problem in Michigan, it was PEDV, and this was 5 years ago, let's say. PEDV, porcine epidemic diarrhea virus. It went through the massive hog houses. It went through them. It went right through them. Baby pigs got diarrhea. They couldn't recover. They died. The mother pigs got diarrhea, got over it, then they didn't get it again. But then a bunch of companies come out with vaccines. And for only $750, you can vaccinate 125 pigs. Well, who would do that? Well, if you're in that type of growing scenario where you have these huge hog houses, you don't actually own the hogs that go in there. You just maintain the house. And so the people who own the hogs, they insure those hogs through an insurance company. So an insurance company will say, make sure you vaccinate them. So now all of a sudden, off of the bottom line is this vaccine that the insurance companies say is, if you don't vaccinate them, we're not going to insure you. And I hope the regulators that are concerned with the health of the American public know that those vaccines make it back into the food supply. I don't think they care. So, no, it hasn't made it here. I keep hearing about it, but you know, I heard about bird flu forever, and you know, they wanted us. We do a lot of pastured poultry, and for a while we were hearing that, oh, you're going to have to put netting over it so the wild birds can't go in and touch beaks with your chickens and then spread it to the wild bird population, and the world will end. It will. I know. It went away. They forgot all about it. Next question. Oh, I did.
But to do it again,
I
like
will-
midstream, sometime in here. Scott was wondering what type of pumpkin is most liked by the Mangalitas. He wants to plant a whole pile of them for him this
You
year.
know what I would do? I would get 5 varieties and plant them all, and then make sure you save the pictures so you know which ones are which, and then just harvest seeds, harvest bags and bags and bags of seeds, and just throw them out there again, you know, and see which ones they like. But you know what's going to happen? You're going to get cross-pollination. So I don't think it's that scientific, Scott. I think, you know, a pumpkin is a pumpkin. If you've ever, we've fooled around with pumpkins for years, so I've cut into a lot of pumpkins with swords and machetes and everything. And I actually like to eat raw pumpkin. I really like it, and I really like pumpkin seeds. And I don't know as one is actually better than another. They all just taste like pumpkin to me. We had pumpkins one year that were probably, well, we couldn't pick them up. I know that. We had to use a strap and a front end loader to pick them up. And I got them from a guy that is in contests every year to grow the largest pumpkins. They were huge, huge. There was so much food there for the pigs. And I grow them too. They don't get that big anymore because a lot of cross-pollinations happen. But so there you go. And you can eat them. I mean, you should pick through them first, get what you want for your house, and cube them up and freeze them and eat them all winter long. I love pumpkins.
That's the fun thing about growing forages.
Yeah, you
We
might
eat
get
out of the
something
pig
you like.
field as good as the pigs do.
We do. We do.
What's your recommendation for when to start getting your soil ready?
Oh, I got this question the other night. You should start getting your soil ready right now. I don't care where you are. Even here, we're under snow cover still. You can pull a soil sample. You might have to do it with a pickaxe, but you can send it in to Logan Labs and find out what the trace elements are that you need. And then you're going to have to source those elements. And for me, I only have to go a few miles down the road. I can get anything I want. And that stuff can all be spread on the snow. Because when the snow melts, it's going to run it right into the ground. You might have some runoff, but so what? I mean, if you buy a 50-pound bag, let's say, of sea salt, and you're doing a garden, let's say, you're not going to use all 50 pounds of it. You can do it again the next year. Pull another soil sample. Soil samples are $30 at Logan Labs, worth every penny. There is so much to know about soil balance and, mineralization, soil mineralization. There's so much to know. I would direct you right now to an outfit called BFA. You can Google that. The guy's name is Dan Kitterich. And he ties soil to pest control. And it is incredible the way the world has been put together for us. And then we think we have a pest problem in our garden. And what we need to do is, oh, I know, we'll get some toxic spray and we'll kill all these bugs. What we should be doing, we should be seeing that pest problem, let's say potato bugs, as, oh, there's a deficiency in this soil, and that potato plant is signaling the biosphere here that it's getting ready to die, So then the potato bugs come in and say, we got a job to do here. We've got to digest this and break this all down. So they're doing their job. And then we see it as something's wrong here. Well, what's really wrong is your soil nutrient density is off. And getting it back on track is not exactly brain surgery to do. We have been told that we only have to be concerned with three things: N, P, K, right? Nitrogen, potassium, and what's K again? Whatever it is, I don't know. That's not true. There's a lot of other things like boron and manganese and all the minerals that are in, say, like sea salt. There's so many things that should be in optimal soil in that soil. And we can do that. You know, we're the stewards of it. We can put anything we want into it very inexpensively, too. So I would start on that now. Start getting yourself smart about what your soil's going to need and where to source the things like rock phosphate, rock dust, green sand. And if you go to BFA, they've got a ton of information out there. Lime, kelp. What other things? You can charge your soil with worms, like red wiggler worms. You can buy them by the thousands and load them into your soil, and those worms will go through and they'll break that soil up and keep it all nice and going for you. And then you're going to want to learn about rototilling, how to do it, how not to do it. There's some people that are dead set against rototilling. I used to be one of them, not anymore.
Will you talk about that in the Homesteaders Guild? Because
Yeah.
that's all deeper dive stuff.
Yeah, that's
right?
deep dive stuff. The Homesteaders Guild, I'm going to plug it again. The Homesteaders Guild is a 4-part class, 12 weeks per part. And the parts are winter, fall, summer, and spring. I direct the class. I guide you. So I pick the topics, and they're the topics that, as an expert homesteader, I think that if you want to attain the status that I have in homesteading, then these are the things that you would want to do. No, seriously. What is BFE? Bionutrient Food Association, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure, but the guy's name is Dan Kitterich. He's out of Massachusetts.
And I'll put a link to it in
Yeah.
the show description if you check back later.
Jill will put a link in the description. What was I saying? Bionutrient Food Association. There it is, right there.
In triplicate.
Okay. Okay, is there another question?
Yeah. You kind of answered a whole bunch of them right there,
Yeah.
all at once. What's the best kind of grass to plant in your fields? M. Finn wants to know.
It depends where you live, and it depends what the soil is like in the field. So, yeah. Grasses range from like rye all the way to, I guess alfalfa is actually, they would call that a grass sometimes. We wouldn't in the farm business, but it just depends on what kind of soil you have. There again, if you had a soil sample and you, let's say, paid for some consulting with BFA especially, they have a consultant on staff, and I think you can get a half an hour there, and you send your soil sample to them. You could say, what type of grass should I grow in here? And they might say, well, this year you're going to want to grow this grass. And then turn that down, and then next year you're going to want this will be your permanent pasture. I'll just tell you what I have here. I opted for a cold weather mix, and it's got orchard grass in it, timothy, and alfalfa, and also bird's foot trefoil in it. And that works well around here. And so that's what I went with. And I did that years ago. It's working out really well. My hay goes to my cows, my pigs, and my chickens all winter long, and they do very well on it. And my soil does well with it too. So, okay. All right, it's 8 o'clock. I can take a few more questions. We can go a little bit long. Not a problem. We've had a pretty good showing of folks tonight. I think we'll continue this. This seems to be good for everybody involved. All right. Quacks and ducks. My mangalitas love alfalfa. Yep, mine do too. I have some input on that. If you live someplace where people do, let's say, a third cutting or a fourth cutting of hay, a lot of times, where I am, a third cutting of hay is really stocky, and it's really, really what they would say hot. So it's very high in protein, and animals like horses and cows can bloat on it, right? It's really gassy. There's a lot of nitrogen in it, and they can really bloat on it. So you have to be careful feeding that stuff. What farmers around here will do is they'll ferment it, so they'll make what they call haylage out of it. But if you've got a farmer around you that's going to do a third cutting, and then he leaves the fourth cutting in the field, or he leaves the third cutting because nobody wants it, you might be able to take that, because your mangalitas can process really hot hay really well. It'll be high protein, and they'll really like it. I guess it tastes good, and you can do just fine with that with pigs. They're not the same as cows. They don't bloat up on it. And you can feed it to them fresh too. They really go crazy for it. But again, don't turn them out on your field thinking that they're just going to eat the hay and not dig. They're going to dig.
How different is the taste of your pork based on what they've eaten?
You know, our experience with that goes way back. I was friends with a guy that got a load of flaxseed, and the guy at the mill told him, "Oh yeah, pigs love this stuff," and so he fed flaxseed to his pigs, and he was in hog heaven because the pigs were getting fat on it, and they were doing really well, nice shiny coats and all this. But then when they processed the pigs, they tasted like fish. So it was sort of a joke called fish pork. So, you think you're going to get a pulled pork sandwich, but it tastes like a tuna fish sandwich. So it kind of grossed people out. I had some of it. I didn't like it. So pigs are definitely going to take on the taste of whatever you feed them. But I think if we're talking homesteaders here, I don't think a whole bunch of you guys are going to be like having hog houses and growing thousands of pigs and feeding hay. I don't think that's the way you'll do it, because maybe, I don't know. But the homesteader pig raiser, all of the scraps from the house are going out to the pigs. And in some of the books, never feed them meat. Never feed them meat. It'll make them vicious. I've heard that. And they'll want to eat your children if they get a taste for meat. Pigs are omnivores. If they were wild, they would find a dead deer and they would eat it, right? That's how we know we don't have feral pigs in Michigan, because everywhere you go, you see dead deer on the side of the road. If we had feral pigs here, you would see feral pigs on those dead deer eating it, because that would be a favorite meal for them. But don't worry about giving them meat scraps. And if you hunt deer and you've got pieces of that deer that you don't want, the pigs will definitely take it off your hands and do well with it. I think that you're not going to want to feed them a truckload of onions before you process them. I think that would be, you're asking for trouble there. But a good rounded out diet, I don't think you're going to have any problems. Not that I know of. I don't know of anything that's gonna change the taste of a pig. Like if they had one Pringles potato chip, I don't think it's gonna change anything. I don't think there's any magic thing out there. But truckloads and truckloads of flax, I know you will have fish pork.
And it makes a big difference in their fat, right?
Yeah. Okay. If this is a charcuterie question and we're gonna talk about custom feeding a pig for a certain type of fat that you want, like really, really sharp chefs know that if they want, superior tasting food, flavor is in the fat. But if it's corn fat or Crisco, vegetable fat comes from corn, from genetically modified corn that grows in the top, 3 inches of soil that has been depleted over the years. So there's no minerals, and it's fat. It's got the consistency of fat, but it has no flavor to it, no mineral profile in it. So it's going to be like Mountain Dew, like that kind of fat. But if you want to custom raise a pig for a certain type of fat, for a certain type of dish that you're going to cook up, then you're going to want to be concerned what you feed them, whether it's going to be dry or whether it's going to be oily, right? So if you feed them a lot, tons and tons of acorns, too many, I mean, you want to mimic nature here. If you go way too heavy on the acorns, you're going to get a really oily fat. Some people like that, and for certain functions, it'd be really good. Cubing that up and use it in cooking, stir frying things would be outstanding. But for making, let's say, lardo, which is nothing more than back fat, and we have back fats on our pigs that are this thick, so we'll cut it into blocks like this, and we'll salt that, and then we'll vac seal that, and in about 2 months, that is totally cured, totally shelf stable. You can slice that off on a slicer, paper thin, and it is to kill for. It is so good. That with cheese, crackers, prosciutto, and red wine. It's to kill for.
Paul wanted to know, what is fodder?
Fodder. I think I covered
answer.
that real quick. Fodder is when you spread grain seeds out on trays and you sprout them, and it'll make a mat of sprouted grains, or a biscuit they call it, and then generally that's cut off after under a week, and it will almost looks like a doormat, and then you feed that to your animals, and you can feed it to just about anything. I don't know if tigers would eat it, but just any of the farm animals, the standard farm animals will eat it, even horses.
What is another pig breed you'd recommend as far as like healthiness and hardiness and
Besides the Mangalitsa,
yeah?
recommend. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of good breeds out there. I know about large blacks because I have some.
Oh.
I know about red wattles because I have some and I've processed some. Any of the white pigs that are around, farm pigs and stuff, I don't recommend those. Any of the pigs, the real high-speed pigs you get for 4-H, I don't recommend those. Simply because they require a high-speed feed that includes hog chow. And they're not going to do well on rooting and eating grass and eating, forage crops that you're going to plant. That's my experience. They didn't do well when we had them, but our philosophy was completely different back then. It was commercial farming. It was like, we got to do thousands of these things because we're making $1.50 off each one, So our philosophy was completely different then. It was just piecework. What you want to do in the farmsteading business is you're looking for quality. It's like you're a home winemaker. You don't want to make bathtubs full. You want to make good quality stuff, so when you share it with your friends, it's good quality. Unless you want to make bathtubs and you just want to guzzle it down, you might. but say like, what I was going to say, like in charcuterie, if you use bad pigs, you're going to get bad charcuterie. And you might as well just get like Oscar Mayer cold cuts and say, try my charcuterie.
But for hardiness, almost any of the
Oh,
untampered
hardiness.
with heritage breeds, right?
Yeah, hardiness is definitely something to consider. I know that the red wattles are very hardy. I know the large blacks are hardy. I know Mangalitsa's are the hardiest pigs I think there are, really, because of the fur on them. So I highly recommend the Mangalitsa pigs, but you can find them out there, and they're not very expensive. People that have gotten them and then bred them with other things, the Mangalitsa characteristics are pretty dominant, so they come back. There you can get pedigreed ones. I don't know if you'd go that route if you just want to do homesteading. But there again, that's a conversation that we need to have. That question needs to be asked about, well, should I just get feeders or should I get breeders or whatever? And we can maybe ask that the next time because we're running low on time here. I will take one, or if you have two
I
more.
have two more questions.
Two more questions.
So, real quick ones. How long should I let the droppings in the field break down before growing our food on that same field?
I'm assuming that you're talking pig droppings. You know,
Yeah.
our experience has been, and I have a video up. I put hog panels around our garden, and our garden is like 100 by 50, let's say. And it's just for the house. And I put hog panels up around that, and then I put my phone up there on this, you know, what is it, time lapse, right? Just to watch it. And I know I posted that. It's on Baker's Green Acres YouTube someplace. Maybe we should see if we can find it. But it was
Yeah,
really
that's
interesting. There was a lot of weeds and stuff that had grown in, you know, under the snow and from the time we harvested in the late summer until when we were getting ready to go in the spring. Maybe I'm telling you more than you want to know here, but we time lapsed it, and those pigs went through there and they ate everything and they turned it all into nice dark soil. And I don't think it was 2 weeks after that that we planted it. And when we were planting it, it wasn't like we were, you know, stepping in. It's not like you know, if they're fed right, it's not like stepping in a dog turd, for instance. You know, you step on a dog turd, then you get in the car in the wintertime, the heater's running, and that horrible smell, especially if you're feeding them like Alpo and stuff. It's not like that. Because I know we have dogs too, and occasionally I'll step on one and I'll come and sit down and be eaten and I smell it. But the pigs' turds are not the same because they're mostly eating hay and dry bread and things like that. So there's very little smell. I would say, you know, from the time that you plant until the time you're harvesting, even the quickest stuff, it's going to be a good piece. And if your soil is got a heavy bacterial load, a lot of those turds are just going to get turned into nothing. And you know, I mean, there's always the experts out there that are going to tell you that there's pathogens and all these terrible things, but we don't see anything go wrong. You know, I don't have people getting sick or anything like that. Conversely, in commercial farming, when you have workers out in the fields and you don't see any porta potties and you know that they're pooping on the stuff that they're picking, you know, I mean, then I guess you have problems, right? But those are humans. But we've never had a problem, and I know some advisories that came out from the real smart people at the university that really advise against that. But it's been done for years, and in the natural world it happens, maybe not in the concentrations that we put the animals on, but okay, we have never had a problem with it. Just from my experience. Last question.
What size wire fence do you use for your pigs?
I use 39-inch woven wire. And if I'm going to be putting cattle in there at any time, I will put a strand or two of of barbed wire on top of that. Lately, though, I've just been putting a single strand of electric on top of that. I used to be a little bit afraid of running electric fences all around my property, so I put barbed on top. But electric is far more. It's more of a sure thing. You know, it's a psychological barrier. My cows get up against it, they get snapped on the nose. With barbed wire, they lean into it, they get a little prick on the neck, and then move to one side, and they'll really push on it. And before you know it, they push a little further, and before you know it, they're stepping over it. They'll just keep pushing on it. Electric is definitely the way to go. So I would tell you that if you're going to do pigs behind woven wire, which is what I do, I use woven wire 39-inch, and then I put an electric standoff on the inside of that fence, 1 foot up and 1 foot away from the fence. So I hope I'm being clear here, but like if this is the fence and you're looking down the fence, right, then your electric fence would be 1 foot out and 1 foot off the ground. So your electric is actually the primary. The woven wire is the secondary. So if your electric goes down for any reason, they don't know that they can push through that, and they'll find, you know, it'd take them a while to figure it out, and you should see that because you should be looking at them at every day. And when you see a bunch of butts sticking up from the fence, you know that they're eating the grass on the other side, and if you let it go, they're going to get through it, and you know your electric is down. So that concludes the question and answer for Wednesday, the 12th?
13th.
13th. March. I would just like to encourage everybody to get through. This is March Madness month, so don't do anything. Don't get a tattoo this month. Don't do anything that you'd be sorry for. And April 1st is coming. Snow's breaking up now. We've made it, and I think there's a lot of good times ahead. This is really good. This is good to do this because what we are doing is we're coming together and we are in a community here. Now, this is just a phone call. It's just this is just a call-in radio show, but we are actually creating community and creating a buzz about homesteading, farming, and that's a good thing. That's a real good thing. So, this is Mark from Baker's Green Acres. You remember